No matter your personal level of authorship, TTRPGs are going to have told a story. Your characters have went out in the world and they did something that is ultimately a story. I think on the scale of game masters, we can think of like two ends of the spectrum. On the one end, there's game master as game designer, where mechanics create the opportunity for the story. On the other side, there's game master as dramatist, where the only good mechanic is one that reinforces the story that we were trying to tell. And I tend to be more the former than the latter. I arrange my pieces out there like Lego bricks for the players to play with, and I see what they pick up and what they start building. And sure, sometimes they start building something, I go, that's a ship, it's clearly a ship, and you're missing the mast, so plunk, but then the players continue to build onto it, and I'm waiting to see what this ship will become. I don't even think of it like a right way or wrong way to play, it's just the way that I learn how to play and I'm comfortable with. So I invited a fellow dungeon tuber, Misty Steps, to help me take you and your players out into snow-covered fields, lands locked in ice, and places where victory is not found at the point of a sword, but in survival.
TTRPGs like Draw Steel, Daggerheart, Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder are trying to give you a wide breadth of fantasy options so that you can play a lot of different things, as opposed to something like the Star Wars RPG that is a much narrower focus on a specific type of fantasy. That's why many of the published campaigns for these products, like Icewind Dale's Rime of the Frost Maiden or Wild Beyond the Witchlight, give you custom rules to try to tailor it towards a specific kind of fantasy. And that's the same thing that I would use house rules for. I'm trying to build a specific fantasy rather than generic fantasy. In this case, make it feel like you have gone beyond the wall, or you're trying to cross Caradhras rather than go through the mines of Moria. Survival as a game is really about fantasy and challenge together. You are fantasizing about playing a character who has the skills to endure these harsh conditions. Whereas the aforementioned TTRPGs are really more about heroic self-empowerment. You're playing an exceptional character, and only they have the skill and the power to overcome and save the world, or perhaps dominate it. And that is a lot of fun. I enjoy that. It just doesn't allow us to portray nature, winter, as the unstoppable force. In heroic self-empowerment, you're not supposed to have unstoppable forces. You are empowered. You should be able to stop those things. But that doesn't mean that we can't tilt the game in that direction. We want to emphasize resources without making the players feel like they're tax accountants. We want magic to feel useful, but not omnipotent. And we want winter to kind of loom, always ready to pounce the moment the players have forgotten about it. That way the players are safe and warm inside, enjoying their characters enduring the harsh realities of winter. We want to create an environment, not just an encounter. An avalanche or a blizzard are an encounter. They are the drop on the roller coaster of engagement that makes you go, ah, and then it's over. Whereas winter is the steady climb. It's always there. After the drop, you're still climbing back up into this difficult winter. It makes everything harder. Sure, a legion of undead is a difficult encounter. How much more difficult would it be if you had to fight that legion of undead over a frozen lake? And how many rounds would it be before your players forgot that they were fighting on a frozen lake? Maybe it's time for the ice to crack. I actually really like that exhaustion was used here because while dragon claws tear flesh, the cold saps the strength from you. And while exhaustion does create a death spiral, freezing death in the cold is definitely a death spiral. And the checks aren't that difficult to make. The default check for extreme cold is a 10. If you have a 0 con bonus, you have a 55% chance of making it. Because remember, you succeed if you tie. Advantage cranks it up to like a 75-ish% chance of succeeding here. I also really like that it is harder to remove exhaustion than recover hit points, often mandating multiple long rests. And out here in the desperate cold, there are lots of things that want to interrupt that to turn you into food. But for what I'm planning to do, I want more granularity. There's, hey, put on a coat cold. And then there's extreme cold, where you go outside and you're feeling exhausted after an hour exposed, but you get a warm drink and a hot fire and your soul's been restored. Then there's dangerous cold, the kind of cold that chills you to the bone so much that even the fire doesn't seem to warm you up. And then there is deadly cold, where the wind and the cold have combined to drive temperatures so low that you could die within minutes. But creatures that are immune to cold should not suffer these effects. I want beings like the Yeti, the Remoraz, the White Dragon, natural predators to feel completely at home here. They are, in a manner of speaking, servants of winter. They belong here. You do not. The default for extreme cold says that a creature that is exposed for 1 hour will make a DC 10 Constitution save, and if they fail, they get 1 level of exhaustion. Creatures with resistance automatically make their saves. So as we go up to dangerous cold, I keep that 1 hour and say that it's going to be a DC. Well, I can't hold up 15 fingers, so it's DC 15. And creatures without resistance do so at disadvantage. Creatures with resistance now just make a normal save. At deadly cold, I decrease the time down to 10 minutes of exposure. Creatures without resistance automatically fail their save. They get 1 level of exhaustion per minute of exposure. Creatures with resistance can make a DC 20 save, but they do so at disadvantage. As a reminder, incapacitate does not prevent movement. You just can't take actions, bonus actions, and reactions. And that does include your dash. So sorry, Rogue, you're not getting back to the fire anytime faster. And in D&D, if you fall in the frigid water, like the water in Michigan during January when it's negative degrees, D&D gives you like 10 to 18 minutes to just get out of the water. Never mind dry and warm. And I mean, I know this is fantasy, but come on, it's nowhere close to that. Sure, because it's fantasy, I'll give you 10 to 18 rounds, 2 minutes to get dry and warm out of those cold clothes before you start taking exhaustion saves. And I'm not giving a creature without resistance saves. No, you're going to take those exhaustion levels, so you better get dry and warm fast. The snow is already making everything difficult terrain. Even a little bit forces you to walk much slower because it kind of cakes your boots and you could fall by ice that you can't see. But if you fall into a big enough drift, it could collapse on top of you and you're basically buried alive in snow. But the players are going to have to go out there and explore this for some reason. Whatever that reason is, I really like Dotty's exploration system with the hexes and the visible vista points and climbing those like Breath of the Wild. And I'd like to add to that, in winter, whiteout conditions will hit. Everything disappears. Sure, climb that tower, see what you can see. You're seeing white. The challenge of winter puts new light on everything the players took for granted during the warmer months, and it puts a timer on their actions. They got to go out in the woods for some reason to stop some monster, to rescue some person in the summer months. Okay, that's fine. There's monsters out there, but during the winter, you've now got a timer. You got to find this person before they freeze to death, and you got to get back before you freeze to death. And now it's a blizzard out, and they're whiteout conditions. You can't go wandering wherever you want. You could fall into a crevasse. You could break your leg and die. But you'll also freeze to death if you stay right here. It's up to players to use their wits, their skills, and their magic to find a way to survive. And those make great stories.
When you step from the tavern into the outside, you experience a temperature change that is so dramatic that it steals your breath. This is hateful dread mixed with crystalline flakes. This is the winter that forces those who live here to simply sit and wait it out and hope that supplies are stocked well enough. But you are adventurers, and the clock is ticking.
A large part of our success as a species is our ability to find ways to survive where we otherwise shouldn't. People like the Inuit and the Nordic peoples have been surviving in deadly winter conditions for hundreds of years because they have the right tools. Snowshoes, sleds, skis, thick parkas made from the local wildlife, blankets, salted fish, and precious oil for fire. We could get extremely detailed about this. Some games do. Some people like that. I don't want to do that. I love 4X games, and I will be super micromanaging there, but I do not want to inflict what I enjoy upon my players. So instead, we abstract. Like many designers before me, we go with a resource. If you have it, you survive. If you don't have it, you die. But 1 is a little too simple for me, so we're going to go with 2. Your tent isn't going to degrade the way that food does, and you can get away with 1 blanket. You cannot get away with 1 liter or gallon of oil, so we're going to split things into 2 groups. On one hand, we have the supplies. Things that you only really need 1 of, and they take some effort to destroy. And on the other hand, you have the provisions. These things are going to be perishable. They will get destroyed whether you use them or not, and you're going to consume a lot of them. A supply is something like your tent, your pack, your bedroll, a mining pick, your rope, something that's going to last until it's completely destroyed. As long as you have 1 supply, you have resistance to cold environmental effects. You could do damage too. I wouldn't, because to me, like a white dragon's icy breath isn't just a drop in temperature. It's more like liquid nitrogen, but it's your game, your fantasy. You do you. Whatever you decide, a supply is rendered useless by total immersion in water, but it is restored after a long rest by a fire. Fall into that icy lake from before and you're not getting a warm bedroll tonight, I'm sorry. I hope somebody packed a spare or else you're going to start the next day with exhaustion levels. Provisions are things like your food, your water, your oil, your torches, things that you need lots of, they don't last, and they're easily destroyed. And you're going to use 2 per day. I thought about doing 3, you could do that if you wanted to, but I found that my players immediately thought of them as food. And while they are that, they're also other things. Maybe you need to eat 3 times per day, but you don't need to use a torch 3 times per day or oil 3 times per day. So I abstracted to 2 to separate that perception. Whatever you decide, if they're exposed to water, they are immediately rendered spoiled. There is no saving them, they're just gone. Now, how many of these provisions and supplies can the players carry around with them? We could make them track weight, but I don't want to. I admit it, I was the kid that wrote down the weight of their 10 candles, figured out exactly how many pounds of gold pieces I was carrying around, and tracked the weight of their rope and their flint and steel. I don't know, I thought it was fun to see exactly what my character was carrying around, but I wouldn't say that it's exactly engaging gameplay. I don't think it ever really came up other than the Dungeon Master not wanting us to loot all the treasure that they put there, in which case, why'd you put it there? Instead of making people track their encumbrance by the numbers and adding up a weight, we could use something like inventory slots, inspired by the Diablo series. Like the PDF down in the description. It is free to grab, use it, my compliments. You're going to need 1 supply to carry all your extra supplies and all your provisions. Remember, your pack is one of your parts of your supply. You got to put this stuff somewhere, otherwise you're just running around with armfuls of mining picks and torches and food and water, and that's going to be really awkward when the dragon attacks. You could pack extra supplies, but you're giving up more room of provisions. And if you lose that one main supply and you're the one that's carrying it, then you lost all your stuff. I hope you're guarding it like your life depends on it. Or maybe you need a horse that carries around your pack stuff, like a pack pony like Bill.
Mines are no place for a pony. Even one so brave as Bill.
Bye-bye, Bill.
If you want to push the survival even further, you could say that each provision lasts only 7 days. If the players lose track of it, it will spoil in their pack. You could even say that each spoiled provision halves the duration of every other provision in the pack. So it could end up in a cascade effect where it spoils, and everything in the pack is rotten. Because the phrase isn't one bad apple, oh well, it's one bad apple spoils the bunch. You got to get rid of that bad apple fast. Okay, let's talk about Goodberry. Magic is core to what makes games like Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Daggerheart, Drawsteel feel the way that they feel. There are no Magic versions of these games, but to me at least, they feel like entirely different subgenres of the game. I don't feel like I'm playing Dungeons & Dragons anymore, and I don't want to change that game that much. Early on, I want Magic to ease the problem, say levels 1 to 7. If you get to like level 10 and beyond, I play all the way to level 20, then sure, by all means, invalidate the problem with Magic. You have earned graduation from caring about starvation and water and whether you're safe outside. Teleport all over the world. It's cool. But Goodberry is a level 1 spell that feeds 10 people completely for a day. Most adventuring groups don't even have 10 people. The most I have ever played with personally is 9, which was a lot, by the way. And that is fine for most adventuring groups. Most adventuring groups and campaigns do not care about starvation. They're not trying to feature survival as a core part of the game mechanic. But this one is. And survival games, starvation is a core part of why they do what they do. Ask anyone who's played like Oregon Trail. Oh, right. Back when computers first got into classrooms, they had a bunch of these educational games, and the one that everybody wanted to play was called Oregon Trail. It was a roguelike game about surviving the Oregon Trail. You don't need to know much about it other than survival roguelike game that made dysentery fun, and that shit ain't fun. Goodberry kind of flushes that concern straight down the toilet. Yes, it takes a spell slot, and a level 1 ranger has 2 spell slots, so it is legitimately a choice. I don't mind that, I just don't want it to completely solve the problem. So while I hate to do this, I am going to change a spell. I will keep all the spell duration, the casting time, the components, all that kind of stuff. We're just changing the description to say that Goodberry creates 1d4 Goodberries, and they function as 1 supply each. So it's possible they could feed 2 people for a day. It's possible they could only feed 1 person for half a day. And before you go crazy with it, that is the spell description from an earlier D20 version, so it is not completely out in left field. I would also change protection from energy in the player's favor, because while it does not explicitly say that it would protect from cold weather effects or hot weather effects, I feel like it should help. So if I'm adding these weather effects to do more exhaustion and more things, I'm going to say that protection from energy provides resistance to weather type effects that match the energy type that you have chosen. Now the players have a different kind of choice. Gear is the easiest, convenient option, but if the players get dunked in the water and they're going to have a difficult time making it back to town, we could help them out with protection from energy and Goodberry, but those are 2 spell slots. One of them is level 2. Maybe we'd be better off with Melf's Acid Arrow and carrying extra supplies. But that is a lot of extra weight and we can't carry as many provisions. Maybe we do go back and get Bill. Maybe a mine is a good place for a pony. I haven't actually figured out what I'm going to do about Leomund's tiny hut yet, but I need a solution for that. I also think that I want to introduce some more regular kind of mechanics. I kind of like the idea that cold and necromancy spells would automatically be cast at 1 level higher without costing that higher level spell slot to add to the evocative nature of being in cold and necromancy kind of environments. I thought about also doing the opposite and saying fire spells and maybe conjuration are always 1 level lower. I voted against that because so many of the creatures in cold environments feature fire as something that they are weak to, they take extra damage from. And nerfing the fire spell that is the thing that defeats the monster feels, well, petty to me. All of this has been from the perspective of if I have the right mechanics, if I turn that dial, if I tweak this knob, I can put together a set of mechanics that when my players interact with them, it will feel like the story could have only taken place in the cold dark of winter. But that is not the only way to do things. You can also do it through evocative description, through discoveries of lore, and through narrative choices. But since that is not my forte, I sent Misty Steps out into the cold north.
At the time of recording this, it is about negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit. It is cold. I am here in my local town. All of the steam coming up is because the icy cold running water is actually warmer than the air outside. So it kind of looks like we're in a boiling hot pot. The sun being out makes it colder than if it was overcast. The sun is a lie. One of the things I don't think people think about is that those harsh winters create the need for really specific infrastructures. They have laws and regulations to keep people safe and to keep equipment running smoothly. In a fantasy world, that might mean that maybe you have to have a party of 3 or more to even leave the town gates because the risk is too high for a single adventurer to be out in these elements alone. This can also impact the lore of a town or the festivals that they have. Maybe they have a festival every solstice where they drive away the dark and cold by lighting up candles and lanterns. Or maybe there are stories that are passed from parent to child, like a friendly wind spirit Jack Frost type who likes to bite at fingertips and noses. Or maybe it's something much more sinister than that. This has been Misty Steps reporting live at Cold as Sin. I gotta go, it's cold. Construction ceases usually from October until April or May. If you can't dig a hole for the fence post, you also can't dig graves. I actually had the opportunity to go on a ghost tour back in October, and I got to see firsthand what they actually used back in the day. We were able to step inside what was called a mausoleum chapel. Essentially what it was is a chapel where funerals would be held. The casket would be lowered into a basement crypt, and the natural cold would preserve the body until it was warm enough to dig into the ground and properly give them a burial. 6 months of the year, there might be bodies that are not laid to rest properly. Do your adventuring parties handle burying the dead when they take down that team of bandits that tried to rob them? Did they try? And what happens if that death count gets higher and higher than what the town can actually maintain? How many restless spirits do you think your level 3 party could take care of? You've probably heard wind be described as whistling or howling, but what if the wind isn't whistling, but rather wailing from an aching soul whose spirit is unable to be put to rest because of this bitter cold? Or what if that wind is a warning? Lack of resources, starvation, bitter cold, these sorts of situations can force people to turn on each other. This sort of darkness and desperation can lead a spirit of malevolence to a person, and in Native American cultures, this is brought about as someone who lives in the Northwoods, I will not be saying this thing's real name aloud. I'm not going to act as though I am an expert on its stories either. Research that yourself. But the parts that I want to bring up is, at least from the stories that I have heard from the people around me, this is not a physical thing that can be killed. Or at least not in the traditional sense. You can push it back, you can appease it, you can send it into hiding, but just like the winter, it will always return. It will bide its time and wait until the next human act of desperation pulls it back into the forefront. You can't defeat the winter. You can only survive it.
TTRPG characters go on adventures out in the world. The season, the locations are characters in the story as much as the gods or the monsters. The when and the where matters. Sure, some seasons, some locations are nice and friendly. If you want to go out adventuring in the autumn, in fields of wheat and hunt dragons, then by all means, go ahead and do so. It'll be nice and comforting and relaxing. But if your players need to leave hearth and home to go out into the dead winter, then you need to make that feel like it's winter. Through the description, the monsters, the mechanics, the magic, whatever it is that's going to engage your players, use that to make them feel the cold wrath of winter. Till next time, Dungeon Masters, remember, you're a player too. Try out some fun.